And that's why Philippians 2 is so vital, so timely for us as we move into it today and start to consider perspectives for practical unity. We're going to look at this today, and next week we'll walk through 5 practical steps to sort of repeat regularly to protect and pursue spiritual unity with one another. Philippians 2, 1-5 gives us 5 ways to renew our perspectives when we're tempted toward divisive or disparaging or destructive reactions in relationships. 5 steps in that way. 5 points, 2 today and 3 next week. And so chapter 2 then turns toward those internal protection perspectives. And here's the first one. Embrace the foundational motives for unity. Step number 1, to rehearse every day in your pursuit of unity, is to embrace the foundational motives for unity. And verse 1 gets to that with these 4 if statements. Did you notice that? 4 if statements. That might be better translated since statements. Since statements. The conditions are true. They're first-class conditions in the sense that the point is not to question these things, but to state that if this is true, and it is, then there's a response that should result. And so the point is that there is encouragement in Christ, if you're in Christ. There is consolation of love. There is fellowship of the Spirit. And there is affection and compassion. And since there is, then make my joy complete by being of the same mind, and so on. So since there is, because there is, then the response is linked. And so these 4 if statements are the foundational motives. That's what I mean in this first point. The foundational motives for unity. Unity is not created or generated merely by telling yourself or telling others, hey, be nice to one another. Be nice. Or by trying to tell you, hey, just be like everybody else. Unity, Christian unity, spiritual unity, is not behavioral. It's not pharisaical. It's not merely external. Unity is also not developed or deepened merely by singing songs about it or drumming up emotional experiences together. Unity is not dependent on feelings or circumstances. Unity is also not the result of dumbing down doctrine to sort of, well, we're going to broaden our reach, we're going to expand our platform, we're going to minimize our differences, and then we'll all be able to come together. No, in the New Testament church, unity is first and foremost built and grown on the foundation of truth that is grounded in the gospel of Jesus Christ. True spiritual unity grows from the roots of holding fast to the life-giving work of God in Christ applied by the Spirit. And so those motivations are what Paul then appealed to here as he transitioned from the outward pressures to the inward dangers. Just note this first step to rehearse for practical unity, to embrace the foundational motives. The foundational motives for unity. Number two, embrace the fulfilling ministry of unity. Step number 2, to protect and to pursue this practical unity, the practice of it. Embrace the fulfilling ministry of unity. Embrace the fulfilling ministry of unity. That fulfilling ministry, it comes from the main verb here in this whole extended sentence that goes from verse 1 all the way through verse 4. And the main verb is to make full or to make complete or to fill up or to fulfill. And it's referring to Paul's joy in response to the Philippians' unity. So the second point here is from the words that start verse 2. Make my joy complete. Complete it. Fill it up. Make it full. Bring it up to the very top, overflowing brim. Paul's joy was ultimately anchored in God's grace to him in Christ, right? He was already said he could rejoice even if people were preaching Christ to hurt him. He could rejoice no matter the circumstances. He rejoiced, he goes on in chapter 4 to say, whether he was poor or he was abundantly fulfilled all his needs. He could rejoice in all of those situations. And yet, this personal appeal for joy his own joy did not contradict that. right? He could have that sustained joy in any situation, but because he cared deeply for the Philippians and for others, he could be even sorrowful and yet also rejoicing as he is in 2 Corinthians. Philippians 1:4 says, their faithfulness gave him joy. I encourage you just to examine your life and examine the body rightly, your relationships in the body, and turn to him and remember the encouragement of Christ, the consolation of love, the fellowship of the Spirit, and the mercy and compassion of God for you that is demonstrated and accomplished by Jesus giving his body and blood in your place.